This is the story of Silent Night. It's the song and how it came to be. Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1818, in an old Austrian village. All through the valley, children were counting the hours. Tonight, they could stay up late to go to church for the Christmas service. Families would come on foot or on sleds, carrying torches and singing, making their way down frozen trails through the snowy pine forest of the lower mountain slopes. Reason why these are on my head. The Church of St. Nicholas could be seen from a long way off. It was a small church. As dusk fell, Father Joseph Moore, a young assistant priest, sat at his desk working on his sermon. He was gloomy because a big problem had developed that afternoon. The village of choir boys and girls had come to rehearse their glorious Christmas music. But when Franz Gruber, the part-time organist, had pumped the organ pedals, there was nothing but a wheeze. Next slide. The choir members had looked at Herr Gruber in dismay. Well, friends, it seems we must celebrate our Christmas Mass without music. You've worked so long and so hard to learn your parts, but for this solemn music, the organ must do its part too, and it has broken down. I'm very sorry. The children of the choir had gone to their homes very disappointed. Franz Gruber was downcast as he trudged along the road to his home and his family in the nearby village, where he was the schoolmaster. Who ever heard of Christmas Mass without music? In Austria, everyone loved music, and almost everyone sang. Father Moore had always loved music. As a poor boy, he had earned his way through school by playing the guitar. He still had his old guitar, and he played as well as ever, but it would not sound right for solemn Christmas hymns. His short sermon might be good enough to make up for the lack of music. He would have to start over, and there was so little time. His small room in the cramped house of the church was stuffy, so he got up, he opened his door to get a breath of fresh air. The snow-covered valley lay silent under the stars, the same stars that had shone down on the stable in Bethlehem. Could he write anything as beautiful as the story of how shepherds in the field, watching over their flocks by night, saw a glorious light in the dark sky? An angel who told them not to be afraid? The angel announced that a baby had been born in Bethlehem, and he was wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in the manger of a stable. And this baby was the Son of God, born to save his people. Then a multitude of angels filled the sky, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill to all." The shepherds hurried to Bethlehem, and they found the baby just as the angel had said. Mary and Joseph had watched over him tenderly, and so had the humble animals of the stable. Father Moore closed his door, and he sat down at his desk. Perhaps he might write a little song, something as simple as the Bible story, something that every child could understand. If he could find the right words, it might not be too late. Joseph picked up his quill pen, and he began to write in German. Silent night, holy night. He wrote 6 verses. When he had finished, he threw on his cape and he hurried off. Lights shone out cheerfully from the rooms above the school where the Gruber family lived. So he has the words to the music. Now he needs the actual music part. Candles gleamed on every branch of the Gruber's Christmas tree, and beneath it lay the presents the children had opened. On a little table stood a manger scene, the figures carved with great care by Franz Gruber. The family welcomed Father Moore and made room for him at the dining table. They shared fresh, hot gingerbread and a steaming jug of cider while he showed the organist the words that he had just written. I need a little tune for this song, he said, a simple tune for our two voices and my guitar. Tonight before Mass, we could sing together with perhaps even a part for the choir? An easy tune, Franz, like a lullaby, to make us see Bethlehem and the baby lying in the manger. Franz Gruber looked at the words, smiling and nodding. Good. I will try. And you, boys, as soon as you finish your cider, run to tell the choir members that they must come to church early, no later than 11 o'clock. They will be singing after all. The priest and the schoolmaster were waiting in the church of St. Nicholas when the young singers arrived. What you have to do is easy, Father Moore told them. Herr Gruber and I will sing the harmony, and you will join in on the last two lines. Can you do that? Of course you can. Now listen. Father Moore struck a few soft chords on his guitar. Then he and Franz Gruber began to sing. It was the first time Silent Night had ever been heard. The high, clear tenor voice of the priest carried the melody, and the schoolmaster's deeper voice sang in harmony. Now once again, Franz Gruber said to the choir, and when we come to the last two lines, you will join in. See how easy? At 11:30, Father Moore sent one of the choir boys to pull the bell rope, and soon afterward, the church of St. Nicholas was filled with village families. They were puzzled. The candles were lit, but there was no organ music to welcome them. Instead, Father Moore stepped forward and he explained what had happened. Let us sing the old carols that we know, he said, and then, before we celebrate the Mass, we have a little surprise for you. Franz Gruber led the people in singing the familiar old Austrian carols, which they could sing without the help of the organ. And then Father Moore came to stand beside him, carrying his guitar. A guitar in church for the Christmas service? People raised their eyebrows. Next slide. But Father Moore's guitar had never sounded better than in the church of St. Nicholas that night, and the melody of the new carol opened the hearts of young and old alike. Silent night, holy night. The Christmas Eve service had never opened so beautifully. After the Mass, everyone said to them, please sing your carol again next Christmas and let all of us sing it. The old church organ was repaired, but it never sounded right. Somehow, by 1824, the money was raised to build a new organ, bigger and better in every way. An expert organ builder came 80 miles to do the work. He heard the new carol, and he learned who had written the words and the music. Father Moore had left for another church, but many people heard him say, the new carol? I wrote the words, and Franz Gruber wrote the music. Franz Gruber said that this was true. He was always glad to dash off extra copies of the carol, but often he did not sign them. The organ builder took a copy with him when he went home. But people forget. After a while, Joseph Moore and Franz Gruber were forgotten. However, their carol was not forgotten. In all of Austria, there was no place more filled with the sound of music than the Ziller Valley, where the song spread because of 4 children. The Strasser children sang like angels. They were 3 girls, Emily, Caroline, Anna, and a boy, Joseph. Their father and mother were glove makers in a little town. Each year, the family filled boxes with neatly packed gloves and traveled to the trade fair. Merchants came from many miles away to buy and sell. The Strasser children helped to gather customers around their booth by singing Austrian folk songs, including a new one that made people listen and buy gloves. You sing like angels, the customer said. What is that lovely song? We call it the Song from Heaven, the Strasser children answered. And do you know who wrote it? No, it's just an old folk song from our mountains. Day after day, people came to buy gloves and went away singing the new song. Before long, it was printed in a little book, and it was published with no mention of Joseph Moore or Franz Gruber. Father Moore was always as poor as a church mouse, giving away every penny that he had. He died in 1848, owning nothing but the clothes on his back and his guitar. Though he never expected to win fame or fortune, he might have liked to know how far the Christmas carol from the Church of St. Nicholas was traveling and how much it was loved. A few years later, Silent Night reached the northern city of Berlin. From then on, by request of the king, the Royal Cathedral Choir sang the carol at every Christmas concert, and a letter went off from Berlin to the choir director to ask whether this was really just an old folk song. It happened that one of the monks living in the monastery knew Franz Gruber, and Gruber solved the mystery in a letter. He told exactly how Joseph Moore had brought him the words for the Little Christmas Carol and asked him to compose music for it. He described how and where it had been sung for the first time, accompanied by the old guitar. By this time, Silent Night was being published and sung in many languages all over the world. Another Austrian family had taken the song to America. They sang it for the first time in New York City. In 1863, Silent Night was translated into English by an American, John Freeman Young. He too has been forgotten, but his words live on in the best loved of all Christmas carols in the English language. The words of peace and joy have been sung even by enemies in the midst of war. At Christmas time in 1914, a truce was called for the German and British soldiers, and at one point, Germans in the trenches began to sing Silent Night. From across no man's land, British voices joined in. Next slide. In a Russian prison camp during the same war, German, Austrian, and Hungarian prisoners were singing. A Russian officer spoke to them as the last notes of Silent Night died away. Tonight is the first time in more than a year that I have been able to forget you and I are supposed to be enemies. Joseph Moore and Franz Gruber gave the world one of its best Christmas gifts, and every Christmas in a special little chapel, people of all races crowd in to hear Silent Night, sung as it was for the first time so long ago by two voices accompanied by a simple guitar. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among those whom he is pleased. Luke 2:14. So boys and girls, this year as this season, as you sing Christmas carols, remember all the people that want to just share the love of Jesus through song.